I'm not doing, and how many times I say the word and how many times I shouldn't say the word So, all right. So yeah, we were just chit-chatting earlier with a lot of people coming in, and I lost track of time. So, yeah, I'm Greg Jones. You're here at beginner guitar, not beginner karaoke. So hopefully you're in the right place. And passionate about guitar. I play several instruments that we were talking about. But guitar is my favorite. I'm obsessed with the guitar. I like the rest. If the guitar didn't exist, I'd probably be a lot better piano player, which is my second favorite. But also a worship leader. I've been worship leading for about 16 years. I'm an old guy. And I'm a leader at Stillwater United Methodist, and I've done some adjunct work here at Cedarville. And I got a website, gregjonesmusic.com, and where are I released a CD last year, instrumental, so take one, pass it around. I'm giving away free CDs. They're not in jewel cases, but that's what you get for free. So, by the way, I should say that the app that Cedarville has, if you guys all have that downloaded on your phones, if you want to go to that, you have the PowerPoint there for this class. You also have some song charts that I've put together. Whether or not we use the songs is just kind of dependent upon what we go through. I just wanted to make sure that we were all looking at chords, and if I'm playing through a song for demonstration. So, welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hey, I added 4 more. We're just getting started. So yeah, make sure they those scores your CD. The way I view things, teaching, I'm not just teaching guitar. And the reason I say that is Romans 1:20 says, that we can basically see the invisible attributes of God through His creation. And I also believe that we can know the attributes of God through, show me a successful person in sports or in their vocation, whatever it may be. Show me someone who has joy, which I always think of as joy as serious happiness. Show me somebody who's content and rich, not by the world's standards, but by God's standards, and you'll show me someone that is living by the truths of God. And as you look closer, you see the invisible attributes of God. And I believe that you're going to see that in being a good musician, a good worship leader, or a good guitarist. So, for instance, good musicians that I would meet have these Christ-like criteria where they yield to others for the sake of the cause. When you're playing in the worship band, you want to make sure that you get out of the way for other musicians on the team, and that you create space, make them sound good. We're all supporting instruments for the vocals in church music. The vocals are the highlight, so you want to make sure that the message is getting across and make those vocalists sound good. Good musicians make themselves smaller. These should all resemble criteria we see Christ demonstrating for us in the gospel. And one thing they do, I said, they face their weaknesses so that they can be stronger. The only way, that's one reason I said on video recording, the only way that we grow is to look at our weaknesses. And I always define humility as having the boldness to stare your weaknesses in the eye without flinching. And that means that your step one when you want to grow in anything is saying, what am I not good at? What are my weaknesses? Because that's how you grow. When I practice at home, I try to practice the things I'm not good at, not the things that I am. That's not practice. So that just smells like Christ to me. That's a Christ-like quality, and that is really what I call humility. Before I go any further, I want to say that on the app, I said you guys heard me say that the PowerPoints are on the Cedarville app, so you can get those from there. Also, I got Psalms on there if you want to follow along. I thought everybody's bringing their guitars, by the way. We couldn't have everybody plug in. But if anybody has a guitar and wants to sit in here with your guitar in your lap, you're welcome to do that. That might be easier.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. And
Well, get it then.
I can't promise I'll wait for you. Just don't bring the
No, I don't
break
wait
it
for you, but I'm
to
gonna-
11. So Spinal Tap.
Adam, if you find Micah, bring him. He's lost.
I also want to tell you guys, if there's a discussion tab on the app for the class. And if you want to place in there your email address or your cell phone if you prefer, and other topics come up in this class, like we start talking about circle of fifths or something that I don't have in the PowerPoint, or we want to elaborate on something, I will text or email you guys other resources that aren't in the PowerPoint, okay? But I just need your information, so feel free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I won't spam you, okay? I promise. So I'm not trying to sell CDs. That's why I just gave them away. What do you guys want to cover, I guess, in this class is what I was trying to get at. I was polling you guys earlier and hearing some say that transitioning from acoustic to electric. So and then somebody said they wanted to learn movable chords, so bar chords. Are there any, because I have some ideas of where I can go, and they kind of fall into these 5 criteria of, there's 5 foundational chords on the guitar. They spell the word cage, so it's easy to remember. And I wanted to talk about chord voicings because the way you voice your chords separate the ladies from the girls and the men from the boys. So if I can show you how to voice your chords, it'll make you sound like $1,000,000. And then we're going to talk about what do you play, because when you're looking at that chord chart, it says C major. That can mean millions of things when you're like a guitar player versus if you're just an acoustic, strum away. So those are some ideas I had. We were already talking about tone and gear just a little bit when some of you walked in. So are there any other things that you say, I'd like to get out of this class today that I might be missing?
I mean, for me, right now my stage of playing, chords no big deal, but just trying to figure out a lead line that, I don't want to be real crunchy, heavy guitar rhythm player, and I'd like to figure out if there's a lead line here or there, and figure out how that works.
Okay, cool. So when you say leads, lines, I'm sure probably thinking like signature lines sometimes, because leads can also be solos, and you don't hear a lot of solos in modern worship music. So like a signature line to a song, as an example. Is that kind of the things you're thinking of?
Well, kind of on the order of the guitar part and Hosanna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the Hillsong.
Yeah.
Hosanna. Yeah, that's a signature line. Yep. Okay. Well, I can take you through that, and like trying to figure out, like decipher that would be a bigger task today.
I don't know if that's like.
But what I can do is, we want to go down the road of learning our scales, and you start learning scales well, and then intervals and arpeggios, which those are the 3 criteria for leads and signature lines and things. And from there, you can be off to the races. You still might have to supplement with a YouTube or a worship artistry account that has somebody showing it to you until you develop an ear. And that's one thing I'm not very good at helping people with, is developing an ear. I was born with relative pitch, and that means that I don't have absolute pitch. Absolute pitch I hear is when somebody, I think Dr. O'Neill has this, you can hear an airplane overhead and you can tell that engine's humming at B flat. Oh, but it's going a little sharp, the Doppler effect's kicking in, it's out of tune now, and now it's a B natural, there it is, dead on. I hear people with absolute pitch can do that, and that's amazing. I also hear it can be a curse too, because they're so sensitive to when everything's just slightly out of tune. I don't have that gift, but I was born with relative pitch, and what that means is I can hear the spaces between notes, and that helps me do the same thing someone with absolute pitch can do. Is I can turn on the radio and pretty much play whatever I hear if it's not too complex beyond my technical ability because of hearing. And I can give you some ideas on playing by ear as well, but because I was kind of born with that, I don't know how far I can take you. There are classes that claim they can teach you to play by ear. So those are some places we could go. Is there anything else that resonates with you? You say, I don't want to waste our time. I'm here for. I want to come away with X,
I guess this one probably goes with the tones or the tips and gear.
The gear, yeah.
My question, or what I want to learn about, is basically my entire electric guitar career, I've always used a amp with preset stuff on it. I never really branched out into developing So to start with the pedal, I had no idea. So like the idea of swells, I had no idea.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha, yeah, okay. So you're saying you primarily use just a guitar and an amp?
yes.
That's the AC/DC approach, and that would have been B.B. King as well. And you know, that works great for a lot of styles. I get to play jazz sometime. It's more traditional jazz standards. And I take out my hollow body arch top with an amp, and that's all that I need. I would never have to use all those effects that we see these worship guitarists use. If I was playing an AC/DC cover band, I wouldn't necessarily recommend all the lyrics of their songs, but same approach. But if I'm playing modern worship, yeah, it's pretty effects driven. So yeah, we'll touch on that. Another one.
For me, I'm sort of a beginning acoustic guitarist. So if you can say, well, acoustic is like this, but electric is like that.
Yep, we're going to do that. That's under what to play. So it looks like I'm on your pulse. Yay! I love that. When I try to do these classes, I get preconceived ideas, but I want to pull the room and want to make sure you guys don't walk away saying, man, that was a waste of my time. Between you and me, I've had a few classes here this week, and I said, I could have done without that. I don't want to be one of those guys. So these are the things I'm planning on. I think this pretty much covers most of the things you guys have said. And this next slide might be for your future development. As you move from beginner, hopefully, to intermediate and advanced, this, in my opinion, is the summary of everything you want to learn at a high level on electric guitar. When I say rhythm, I don't mean rhythm guitar. I mean rhythm like musicians speak of rhythm. All musicians, you know, can you play in the pocket? Can you play eighth notes? Can you play syncopation? You know, those types of things. That's what I mean by rhythm. Obviously, you want to learn your chords and scales, intervals, and arpeggios. That is the heart of lead guitar. That's all lead guitar is. When you learn those three things, you've learned all the fretboard. That's everything. Technique is specific to your instrument. Every instrument has technique. I play piano. There's not a lot of techniques on piano, but guitar, there are millions of them because you have muting, fret hand, and strum hand. You have alternate picking, you have tapping, you have sweep picking, you have harmonics, you have bends, and there's so many ways to do all those things. So I don't know if we'll get heavy into technique in the beginner class, but that would be something on your list to things to learn. Music theory covers everything. You know, that's helps you think about what we do. If you try to bypass this, and I know a lot of musicians, there are good musicians who say, I'm not learning music theory, they think it's going to kill their creativity. What they end up doing is reinventing the wheel. They end up inventing their own abstract way of thinking about music, and they're doing it the hard way when they could have done it the easy way. Plus, they can't communicate to other musicians. So if you want to be able to communicate to other musicians, you want to be able to know what somebody says means when they say, let's play 2 bars, you know, or 2 measures, you know. What does that mean? If I don't know what that means, I'm deer in the headlights, and it's just kind of embarrassing. So you're shooting yourself in the foot if you don't learn music theory. A lot of people get intimidated by music theory and think it's rocket science. If it was rocket science, I wouldn't know it. So do not worry. It is not like that. And most of the music theory I would sum up for guitar especially, learn the number system. We might cover that. I doubt it. We'll see. And the circle of fifths is helpful. I think it's less important for a guitar than a piano because circle of fifths tells you how many sharps or flats are in the key, and sharps and flats all look the same on the guitar fretboard. On a piano, not the case. The white keys are the naturals, the black keys are sharps and flats. So anyhow, to me that's your high-level view. If you were to go home and Google and YouTube on those items relative to the guitar, I think you're on the path to learning everything on the guitar, in my opinion, at a high level. One thing I find is I want to teach you how to practice because a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of players don't know how to practice the guitar. And what I say is that boredom is a failure of creativity. And if you are, if you're bored with your practice, then you're probably not being creative with your practice. The idea that I want to try to communicate with you guys is to don't just play the guitar, make it your playground. Play with the guitar. So what I'll do, let's see if I'm even on. Okay. I just got a bare bones non-worship, you know, just like a clean guitar tone going on there right now. What I'll do is, you know, obviously you can play a C scale, which who signed up for doing this? Did anybody? Is this kind of boring? It's a drag. But making that your playground which is all white keys on a piano, by the way, if you're visual. Making that my playground means I'm always asking, what if? Like, what can I do with those chords? Remember, Jesus said that if you want to come to the kingdom, he says you got to be like a little child. What's a little child do? They go to the beach and they say, "Wow, I got all this sand. Got my friends here. Got my pail. Got my bucket. Got my digger. What can I do with all this?" Well, what can I not do is the more bigger and easier question to answer, because, wow, I can bury my sister, I can get my G.I. Joe dolls out and build a moat, and the sister might say that I can get my Barbie dolls out and we can build little sand furniture and have a tea party, right? There's millions of things you can do. Well, we get older and we lose that mindset. But what does that look like on the guitar with that simple do, re, mi scale? Well, it means millions of things, guys. I mean, I don't have to play those notes in order. So I can skip, I can come back to the note I skipped. I can randomly play these notes. And I know it still sounds like an exercise, but wait till I keep going a little bit. I'll breathe life into it if I can be creative with my rhythm, and that's big. So if I got a little rhythm going on, you can make this a drum machine. You don't have to pay for your drum machine. Go out online or get an app, you get a free drum machine. Just going up the scale, pretty much. I skipped 1 or 2 notes. I started on the 5th scale degree. But do you see what I mean? I'm breathing life into it. Like you just say, hey, this is my playground. I can do anything I want with this. There's ways to make practice fun. And it's by exploring possibilities. In my opinion, not everybody agrees with me on this, and you're free to be wrong. But in my opinion, everybody can be creative. And the problem, what separates us from not being creative is we don't ask questions. And the questions we should ask is what-if questions. So if you always ask, what can I do with a scale? What can I do with a chord? And there's millions of things you can do with a chord. Like I was asking those questions, and I discovered this little thing where I said, what if I take my C chord and I tap the next note after that high E, which in the C chord would be a G. There's a G. Well, and then what if I tap 2 more notes that are in this? I don't care about the chord now. I'm just thinking key of C major now. Okay. Now, by the way, I know music theory, and that helps me think about this. It helps me ask more questions. So I do these little licks. It'll be like with ambience. It's really cool, but it sounds like I have a 7 or 8 string guitar, and I don't. You know what I mean? So that's the thinking that I want to encourage you to have, and it makes practice fun, and it's why I'm addicted to practice. And my practices, I'm a lot of tune. My practices aren't much different than jamming. My jamming is not much different than practice. So that's why I do it probably 3 or 4 days a week now. So sometimes I drive my family nuts. But let me keep going. So I said there's 5 foundational chords. And good, you can see these. I was worried. Just again, you can go pull up the app if you need to. C-A-G-E-D, the one circle. That's the foundational. Every chord on the guitar is built from those 5. Every one. So even if I'm playing some wicked G, what happened? I turned got my tuner on. G7, sharp 5, sharp 9. That's built off of the E chord. I know it doesn't look like it, and I'd have to reverse engineer it to show it to you. It's based on that bar chord, which is based on that open chord. And that's that E chord fingered differently. Okay? I took that and I can turn it into a bar chord, I can modify a couple notes, and I get the late night with Leno, or late night with Jimmy Kimmel, or whoever. They'll hit that chord at the end when the horn section's going. The horn section will do those chords. You've heard those? No? Okay, well, maybe you guys don't stay up as late as I do. But every chord built from those 5, including those other 3 that I have not circled. A minor, D minor, and E minor are built from A major, D major, and E major, one note modified. So if you can learn these chords really, really, really well, you've unlocked the secrets to 100 or 1,000, I don't know how many chords there are on the guitar, but you've unlocked the secrets to all of them. So does everybody know these? At least these 5? Now, I'm not going to embarrass you or throw anything if anybody does not. So it looks like you guys do, judging from head nods. So So that's the foundation, and I've even taken it as far as to memorize the scale voicings for those chords. Like with the C, I learned that the first note is the 1, and there's the 3rd scale degree, and there's the 5th scale degree, and the 1 and the 3, and that helps me, but I'm analytical, and I'm a music theory guy, and that might not work for you, but I can't, I would encourage you to be obsessive about learning these, is my big point. So, if you were to take those, really 8, we can count the minors, and run a capo on the guitar, which we normally see more acoustic players doing that than electric players, you could play about almost any worship song that would come up, okay? You just need to know where to slap that capo on. Does somebody do that in this room? Yeah, there's no shame, okay? It's just like a recovery group. Hi, I'm Greg Jones, and I run a capo at the 3rd fret. Hi, Greg, we understand. Yeah, we do the same thing. Yes?
So those are the fundamental acoustic chords that I'm used to seeing.
We call them cowboy chords or open chords.
I asked a fellow who plays both acoustic and electric, and he says, oh yeah, well, if you learn electric, it's all up here. Mm-hmm. And he must have meant something by that, but those didn't look like fundamental chords. And I begin to watch electric players, and sure enough, it's...
We play a lot up here. I can't say I never play those chords. It just depends on the context of the style. What I want to make sure we get to is when I was polling you guys, and we asked, well, what does electric guitar do in a song, and how is that how is it different than an acoustic? I'm going to play to a multi-track later, and I'll show you how we play up the fretboard, and maybe we can go and dissect that down a little bit. But basically, the next step is to turn these into movable chords or bar chords. That's the next step. But you just want to learn these really well. So before I get there, here's a little cheat sheet for capoing if you need it as a beginner. It just tells you, hey, if I'm in the key of second column to the left, A major, then I can capo the 2nd fret and play as if I'm in the key of G. Now you have to translate the chord chart, called transposing it. And that's probably a little more than I should get into in this class if you don't know how to transpose a chord chart. But this would be a little cheat sheet for you to run a capo if you only know those 8 chords. You don't know bar chords yet, and the song's in B flat. Do I have B flat up there? Oh, no, I don't. Any songs in the key, I should have B flat up there. But anyhow, if it's in a different key, you can run a capo and get by with just the 8 chords. You know what I'm saying? Chord voicings, I think, really make the difference between is sounding like an amateur or sounding like a more advanced player. So this is a concept called that Paul Baloche calls train tracks. And let me just show you the sound of it. I'm going to play the train tracks in the top row in the key of E major. I'm keeping the effects off right now just so you have clarity. But obviously, a lot of times in this worship music, we're using more effects and stuff, right? Mostly delays and reverbs. But so you got that E major. And by the way, I just noticed the X's on that first one. Those should be O's. The X's mean don't play the strings, those open strings. And yeah, that's wrong. It should say O's. And I noticed I caught it on F sharp. So I apologize for that. So you know what an E major chord is, right? All right. Here's the F sharp minor. And then the G sharp minor. I'm just going across the row. And these are just 2 and 3 finger chords. An A major, and a B major. Make sure I got that right. Okay. Do you notice everything I'm playing has these open strings ringing? That's the train tracks, and it's the 1st and 2nd strings that are ringing. And then finally I got C sharp minor, and then the B over D sharp. Actually, the B over D sharp is an exception, and you really can't do the train tracks trick on that one so easily. Okay, that's running through something called the number system, by the way. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, something maybe for later development, but the train tracks idea would be that you have 2 notes that you're threading through your chord progressions. And those two notes are, I was going to write on the board if I can, the first and fifth scale degrees, okay, of whatever key you're in. Can you see that?
Almost.
I'm sorry. I see if the other red does better. No. All right.
It's all right.
Yeah, we're just going to have to deal with it, aren't we? So if you're in a key of E, and I know the circle fifths and know the key signatures are F sharp and G sharp, A, B, and C sharp. Don't worry about it if you don't know how many sharps or flats are in a key. That's not important right now. But these notes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the 5, and 6 and 7. And we're saying train tracks take those two notes and put them on the top of all of your chords. Sorry, some of you guys can't see that, but hopefully you're getting what I'm saying, right? So what you just saw me do was play in the key of E, this chord progression, and everything I played had those two notes, the first and second strings, ringing, versus trying to play it after you learn bar chords, it would sound like this. Okay? And it kind of sounds a little elementary at times. Versus, and it's actually easier. 2 fingers is all I need for some of those. See? So just because it sounds better doesn't mean it has to be harder. Okay? So that's the concept of train tracks. And I show them in the key of E, and I show them to you in the key of G down here. I'm not going to run through them all because of time. I'll demonstrate them so you can hear them. That's what they sound like, okay? And like God of Wonders, I know it's an old song. They do it in the key of B flat, I'll do it in the key of G. Heard that song before? I'm going out of tune again. I'll have to find which strings going south on me. But it's the first 2 strings, ring, do all those chords. I think it's my 3rd string. It's got to get used to the temperature changes. See those 2 notes? Okay? So that's the idea of train tracks. Paul Balash is the guy to look up on this. He's got a PDF and a video. It's probably on YouTube where he teaches this in depth. So, by the way, what I'm trying to do in class, if this is okay with you guys, unless I see a subject really resonating with you, I'm going to go a little fast because I want to hit lots of things. My idea is that you can take this home and research it and develop it more later. If I go too fast, slow me down. I'm fine with that. All right, guys?
So,
questions? Yes. Anytime you have a question, just interject.
Dumb questions about the.
I love dumb questions.
I got a million of them.
Better than dumb people.
You can play those chords so long as you're in the key of D, right? Not conflict with anything, not having dissonance with it.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you asked that because what I was speeding along and didn't get to was I can take, once you learn them in the key, especially the G, you can make it movable and play like in the key of A flat or key of B or whatever you want to do. So I know A flat's a horrible key, so I'll demonstrate that one, okay? There they are, train tracks. Just by taking those and turning them into bar chords, which is something I'm going to hopefully get to today, all right? So once you learn the key of G, now you're off to races to play in the concept throughout any key with your music, all right? In fact, this next slide gets us into a little bit of movable chords. And I didn't want to go too deep with movable chords, but maybe I'm going too shallow. And if that's the case, I'll give you more. Again, I want you guys to drive. What I'm showing you here are what I call, they're partial chords that are movable on the guitar. The red ugly blocks there, that is the root for your chord. So the top row is C major, all right? You normally play a C major with all 5 of your strings going on. We saw that one a few slides back. And all I'm playing is just these 3, okay? three strings, second, third, fourth strings. Does everybody know the numbers of the strings? The strings are numbered backwards on the guitar. I didn't invent this, so don't shoot the messenger. That's the first string, and that's the sixth string. You'd think it'd be the other way around. If I talk about top and bottom on the guitar, I'm talking pitch usually. That's the top of the guitar. Isn't that confusing? Because it's the high notes, all right? So I'm sorry, sometimes we assume that stuff, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page. So these are all like shapes, and you'll see it when I get to that second one, okay? That second one, I could have played like this. I'm playing with one finger. That's a C chord. It's a movable chord, okay? I got 12 chords here, and I don't have to do anything but move my finger, all right? And I'm just playing the second, third, fourth strings. And you might be saying, but how do I know that's C and not, like, this is B, right? That red note is it's called the root. Just like trees have roots, chords have roots. So if you can memorize that root for that shape and know, this is intimidating, your notes on the fretboard, then you're off to the races for moving these shapes around. So like in the key of C, I could play this, F, right? I know that sounds very, very rudimentary, but you know, there's magic with effects. So if I was to like do some ambient stuff, right? Sometimes that's all a song needs, especially when we're just starting out and learning, right? So it doesn't have to be rocket science or complexity. I'm just taking that second shape at the top, and I'm moving it, and I know where the root is, and I need to know where my C and my F is on that third string. Do I see a question? No. All right, so you can do that with all these shapes. I'll keep the effects on for now, like that third shape. Because I don't know how many of you guys know an F chord. If you've learned the F chord, that's right there. I'm playing at the 8th position. When I say 8th position, I mean my top of my index is at the 8th fret, okay? So I'm only playing 3 strings of it. Yeah, as you can see, we're not even worried about the first string or the bass notes. There's an F chord. And I know I'm sorry, it's a C chord. It's the shape like the F. It's a C. That note is the C. So I need to know that that's a C note. And that gets back into that scary string that note memorization thing, which I'll make simpler for you in a few minutes, okay? And then that last one at the top, I'm not going to cover all these, is that one. That was the first shape I played. But it didn't look like that because I can refinger it. I finger it like this when I have open strings. So once you make it movable at that 12th position, it looks a little different, but it's the same. All these are movable. My root of my chord is that second string, second finger note. That's a C. So I can move it here, and it's a G. Because I know that's a G note. All right? And I know that's an F note. Okay? So we're getting into movable chords without having to do a lot of contortions with our fingers. And some of you, just starting out, you're going to have to build your muscles up, and you're going to have to build your calluses up before you can get into a deeper bar chord like that, or this one I play sometimes. Yeah,
That looks painful.
it's beautiful. I love it. It's fun. I do it just for fun. Here's my favorite one. Look at that one, buddy. Yeah, take that one home and show your mommy. So I only do that for guitar instruction. I'll never use that one in a song, but it's a beautiful chord, isn't it? So you can do that with all of these shapes. I'm not going to take you through all these because we got an hour. Notes on the fretboard. We're going to make this easy. Guitarists aren't like many other instruments where it's like I pretty much have to know all the notes of the instrument to play it. Bass players fall in the same category as the guitarist I'm going to describe. What you can do is, if you were just to take, when you get into movable chords, if you were just to learn the lowest 2 strings, your 6th, I'll get rid of my delay, get rid of that 6th and 5th, learn the notes on these 2 strings, the 6th and 5th strings. you can then figure out every note on the guitar fretboard from those 2 strings, okay? And I'll get you jump started on the 6th string, that E string. These 3 dots, you know, the 3rd, 5th, and 7th frets right here, that's gab. So you got a word, right? G, A, B. So you already got 3, an easy giveaway for 3 notes. So that's a G, that's an A, that's a B. You want to memorize, you don't have to memorize the sharps and the flats. I don't even have the sharps and flats written in there. Just memorize the naturals, and only for the 6th and 5th strings. You might say, okay, that if I'm playing one of those chords we just showed on the previous screen, and you can see I have roots on the 2nd and 3rd, the higher strings. Well, how do I figure out what those notes are? Let's go back to this one I played. And I'll refinger it like this, just so you can see both. My fingers are too stocky to play this as a regular fingering, but some of you are going to have slender fingers. I dropped a pick. There it is. And this might be a preferred fingering for you. There's my root. It's right there on the 3rd string. If I've memorized the 6th and 5th strings, I've memorized those notes. This note, if I jump 2 strings down, right? Musicians, right? That's how we are. So in pitch, right? 2 strings down to the 5th string, and 2 frets down. That's the C. So it's an octave. So if I memorize the 5th string, I can find the 3rd string. Do you see it? So, also as a bonus, you can play octave licks. Right? Lincoln Brewster, you know, a lot of songs are going to be riffed on octaves. And of course your jazz stuff does a lot of stuff with octaves also. So you want to learn your octaves, and I probably should have put a graphic in here for octaves. But an octave basically is going to, from whatever target note, the source note, say I'm doing G, go up 2 strings, up 2 frets, and there's your octave. And that's the same. That's true for starting on the 6th and the 5th string. Okay, and there's 2 C's. When I get to the higher 2 string pairs, you have to add a fret. Okay, and that's because of the way the guitar is tuned. Okay, the guitar is tuned in a way that forces us to do it that way. Okay, so octaves are like that for the low strings, and they're up like that for the higher strings. If that makes sense. And so you can use octaves coupled with memorizing only the notes on your 6th and 5th strings to find every note on the guitar, and that will help you with those movable chords that we just saw. Okay? So that's one quick way for you to get into movable chords, and maybe I should demonstrate a little bit with some of those shapes. I was tempted to put a multi-track in, but you know what? I'll probably screw it up because I'm improvising. I'll just, so you got like, here's a C. This is that. I'll just play a few of these shapes. I won't even tell you what they're called, okay? And then there's another one. Sometimes you can, it's called arpeggios or arpeggiating, when I'm not playing all the notes at once. I'm kind of breaking them out, okay? And then here's that bar one we did. And these are all C's, okay? And then there's an F. There's my C, G. And we said, you might even play higher, right? And most songs repeat something, right? And effects. So effects are your friend, especially when you need to keep things simple. And look, you might say, oh man, I'm impatient about being an advanced guitarist and I want to be better tomorrow. I want to be Lincoln Brewster. But guys, most of the times, even a Lincoln Brewster guy is going to have to simplify what you play. You have to hold back if you want to really serve the church. I'll practice some complex songs at home because it's a fun mountain to try to climb. Been working on giant steps, for instance, which is one of the toughest jazz ones I've try to tackle, but I never get to use those licks at church. You know what I mean? They build my confidence, but I have to. It's like, you ever heard of restrictor plate racing in NASCAR? It's where they put this plate on the accelerator that keeps the car from going really fast so that they're even or something. You kind of have to do that. You got to ride in a school zone a little bit. So don't, for a second, let your ceiling, as at whatever level you are, beginner or intermediate, don't let that stop you. You can be very creative with very little. And I hear that I mean, the Edge is a very artistic guitarist and very creative. He's not a virtuoso in the sense of a Jeff Beck or Steve Vai or you know, but man, he's powerful. So you can do a lot with a little. So don't wait. Don't feel like you have to wait until you've got 10 years under your belt as a player. We were going to talk about ways to play the guitar. So, because we were talking about, you know, maybe you've transitioned from acoustic. What do I do with this instrument in an electric guitar context, especially in context of worship music? You can do I guess I'll put back to my dry effect again. We can do driving rhythms sometimes in worship music, or in just music in general. Driving rhythm might be like, that's 8 note, right? Straight blue rises through wait upon the moon. That's just playing. It's part of a bar chord, which we haven't got to yet, although we're on our way with those movable chords I showed you. But just driving 8 notes is all. I'm just playing the bass note of the chord. And every once in a while, I can throw the whole chord in. Your friend was saying, you know, he plays up high. I could do that with this open C. I kind of like the sound of that one better, but it's pretty close, you know what I mean? So those open chords aren't something that we never use as electric players. But driving rhythm, that's an example. Partial chords, we've already gone over. You saw that just a little bit. Arpeggios was me just taking those chords and breaking those notes out. That's a simple. You've all heard like, right? That's an arpeggio. An arpeggio breaks the chord out, and that's doing it in the context of lead, and in context of rhythm, we might. That's an arpeggio. So you just break it out and just all in one fell swoop. Swells, that's getting into either your volume knob or your volume pedal. It's helpful to have the ambience thing going on. And I'll take a chord like, hear me swelling it? What I'm doing is I'll hit the chord and then bring my volume knob, my volume pedal up. I could do it with the knob. Well, I think I can. Once I get my pedal up, I can go. It's a little more awkward for me to do it. So, you know, if I can tap. So it's much easier for me, especially on the telly, to do it with the pedal. But yeah, those are swells. And the effects really make a big difference. I mean, if I take the effect out of that, it's actually I can't. That's my wah pedal. Oops. So that would, but see, it's just like it's not worship. It's not what we used to in this genre of worship music, is it? So the effects are really helpful for this. Single note, single line, or signature lines, and single note melodies. That's where we get into, you know, your scales more, and you know that song, Fierce, you know, or we've been doing, let's see, right? Recognize them immediately. That's where we get into the scales, a little bit of intervals, and arpeggios as well. Lead guitar stuff. Tremolo picking, I don't do much of that, but that's when you got to develop the technique, you know. And usually it's done with a lot of ambience. And the guys who really mastered that are able to make the effects so you don't hear as much of the pick attack. I don't do it enough, so I feel like an amateur on that. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's demonstrate what that would look like in a song. So if you want to look at your app and pull up Great Are You Lord so you can see the chords, what I'm going to try to do is play to a multi-track, Great Are You Lord. I won't play the whole thing, but I'm going to play through the song and show you some things, and maybe we're going to start and stop, I don't know. Let's see if this is mixing okay, because I haven't been able to fully test the mix and see if I want to make sure everything's blended okay. Now, I might hold off on this song, by the way. I might, especially if I have a strong keyboard and acoustic. If I want to do it more like All Sons and Daughters, I might not even play here, okay? But I'm going to overplay a little bit just so that I can demonstrate, because nobody needs to know how to sit out. We just might need some self-discipline to do that. Let me turn the volume up a little bit. I think it's going to be a little soft. Okay. So I'm just using that ambient effect, right? Really simple. I let the space and the effects. It did C chord, and then they went to E minor, and I didn't move. Because that is an ambiguous chord. It is a chord that will work over both of those. And the way it's hard for me to contort and show you this, but I'll attempt it. They're doing that. That's the bass player and the rest of the band. And then they're doing. Do you hear it? That's what I mean. It's ambiguous. It's like, is it C? Is it E minor? It's got part of the notes of both chords. And that's something that's harder for me to teach you. I did it by accident. But it's something as you advance, you'll start. I just want you to be aware of it. That there's ways you can do that. Okay. So the notes are shared in both those chords, and that's how I did that. So, any questions?
I noticed the fellow that was playing for Meredith Andrews. He's on his footboard a lot, like every section of the song. He's over here. I noticed. I just kind of wondered about that. And you said, okay, well here I'm going to cut in my overdrive. Are you typically, like for something like that, would you just have one setup? Like here's a sound, and it's got a certain kind of tube, and it's got a certain kind of reverb and a certain kind of delay and so on, and I just...
There's more than one way to configure your gear, and we haven't talked a lot about gear yet, except when you guys were walking in. But some pedal boards will make you pedal dance, okay? And I can't afford to do that because I lead worship with electric guitar a lot, most of the time. And we're kind of a dying breed because most of the worship leaders are leading acoustic or piano, which I do that too, but mostly electric. And I just can't be pedal dancing. On a multi-effects pedal like this, and you guys can come up and look at the gear afterwards if you want, I can hit one pedal and get 4 or 5 things turn on potentially. Now, with the traditional pedal board, you can buy, there's a loop, it's not called a looper, because a looper records you live, but they're signal loopers, I think might be the term. And what they do is they act like a router for, like, you hit one foot switch on the signal looper and it turns on, it puts 3 pedals in the chain, turns them on. Or you actually have them on and they're waiting to be in the chain. And then you hit another one and it puts another combination. So that saves you from pedal dancing. So there's ways to save yourself from the pedal dance with the traditional pedal board, but the multi-effects ones, you can kind of build, you can design it, or you can design your patches to avoid the pedal dance. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, I have a worship director, and he's kind of a purist, and he likes pedal, 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 pedal. He's got his whole board carefully crafted, and then, you know, I've seen some other players that they come in with a nice digital pedal board, and they just, here's the sound I want now. Okay, I pre-programmed it already, and so I just thought I'd hear what you said about that.
The thing, I just recently bought a Helix, and I kind of feel like the dog that's caught a car, and I don't know if it's good yet, but the reason why I like it so much is that the guys that I've gotten the patches from, they'll use the snapshot feature.
Yep.
And what the snapshot feature does is more or less takes a picture of all the settings and parameters of like your delays and whatever, and captures that so that, you know, in like Hosanna, Hillsong, I have 3 buttons, and if I'm playing the intro, 1 button, the chorus.
And it might turn 2 or 3 things on and off.
Yeah.
And what are the typical things you might be turning on and off might be, you know, you're turning on a delay, a reverb, maybe an overdrive, or you're turning off the overdrive because you want a cleaner sound. Generally, I go a little cleaner on the ambient sounds, and as I start adding overdrive, I start bringing down the ambient effects, meaning the reverbs and delays, because it gets way too muddy generally. Okay, there's always exceptions, and don't put your creativity in a box. But just some general ideas there as the sounds start getting drier, as we start using more overdrive to fatten it up, so you don't muddy things. So yeah, and we were talking to some of you earlier on about gear, and there's 2 paths that seem to be emerging with gear. And the traditional route is a tube amp and a pedal board. That's tried and true. It's the holy grail. Your professionals on tour, some of my favorite guitarists like Eric Johnson are using a rig like that. They have guitar techs that travel with them, and they have companies throwing lots of money at them and a lot of resources. Those are cool ways to go. What's happened in the last 5 to 10 years is that this gap between the realism of the modelers and those tube amps is basically, it's almost nothing. They're really, really, really convincing, and what has made that gap narrow is something called impulse responses. IR is the abbreviation, and what an IR does is it models the microphone, the speaker is the most important thing. The speaker, the cabinet, the microphone of your amp, and it's very computer resource heavy. It takes a lot of hardware, firepower to do it. So you have to have dual processors in all these things. There's sharp chips, and that technology has become more economical in the last 5 to 10 years. So any modeler that can handle impulse responses is what I would recommend, including Helix. I'm using the Fractal Audio, Kemper, Profiler, the Head Rush. Now they're getting down in price. NAMM has one introduced called a Hot One Ampero. That's going to be $400. So that's the next phase. They're going to come down to common NAMM. So, and the advantages of the modeling stuff is it sounds the same at any volume. Tube amps, you have to push them to sound good. That's why small tube amps are so popular. You have all your effects in one. I'm just carrying this pedal board. When I lead worship or play, usually we have in-ear monitors. If you don't, and you're running wedges, there's a wedge I can bring if I want. I can use the church's wedges. I have my own in-ear monitor system that's wireless that I bought that I could even bring to a gig and plug their monitor feed into my IEM system. And I have the in-ears even when the rest of the band doesn't. It's really cool. But it's about a $600 investment, so it's not cheap. But several cool things you can do with all this. I'm not telling you which way to go. Metallica is on tour with 2 of the rack mount versions of the Fractals now. No amps. That's just unheard of. They have all the money they need. They can do anything they want with gear, and they're running Axe FX 3s. They have pairs in case one breaks down. And then, of course, they have the money and the guitar techs to do anything they want. On the other hand, the Edge at U2 is using, I was telling somebody, 42 guitars and multiple tube amps and pedals most of the time. I think he has one of the Fractals just for his effects sometimes, but I don't know if he's using it for modeling. So lots of cool things happening with gear, and a lot more we could discuss than that's probably appropriate for a beginner class. So I see the clock is getting close. Any questions? Anything that was a mystery? I didn't really talk about how to take those open chords and fully turn them into bar chords, but I don't know if that was something that would be interesting to you guys or not. Any questions? Anything we didn't hit? It all making sense? I hope I didn't overwhelm you with some of the fretboard charts. You know what I mean? If you wanted really quick, if you wanted to take the 5 chords we talked about, C, A, G, E, D, I forgot to mention this. Out of those 5, there are 3 that I call the trinity of the caged, and they are D, E, and A. And that's the lowest 3 strings on your guitar. If you need to, those letters, E, A, and D, one way to remember them. You're going to get more mileage out of those chords. Must have turned myself off. There we go. You're going to get more mileage out of the E, A, and D chords for several reasons I don't have time to elaborate on. You're just going to use them more for movable chords. They're the only 3 you can make minors easy, and they're the only 3 you can really suspend. And suspensions are muddy chords in a lot of modern music. I'll use those 3 as I'll use one of those as an example. If you take your E major, and if I refinger it to free up my index finger, my index is free and it's waving at you guys. Now that can sit right at this bar in front of the nut of the guitar, okay? And now all I got to do is move it up somewhere, and I have a bar chord. So middle is the good place to start. That's not an E chord. It's an E-shaped. That note is A. Remember Gab, G-A-A-B? That's an A. That's an A major chord. Here's the A major. Different voicing, same chord. That's how you make bar chords. All those 5 fundamental chords I showed you, C, A, G, E, D, right? You can do that trick with all 5. You refinger it, free your index, index covers the opens, move it up, bar chord, magic. Make sense? All right, guys, if you want to stick around afterwards, I have 15 minutes. But glad to been able to teach you guys. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the CD. If you don't, that's okay. Give it to somebody you hate. Give it to an enemy. Yeah, I got an act date. Really, the fundamentals for worship music would be an overdrive and a delay. If you have a reverb mode these days, a shimmering one, like the TC Hall of Sound would be a cheaper one. I don't know if you get that shimmer thing out of the Line 6, but The Zoom MS-70 CDR, I know that's hard to remember. It's a $100 stop pedal. MS means multi-stop, and it does the Strymon. It models the Strymon, and it sounds wonderful. Does it sound as good as the Strymon? I doubt it. If it does, wow. But for $100, if you're on a shoestring. But yeah, I feel like I have everything I really need. I don't know, how did the ambient stuff sound? I mean, I wasn't good. Yeah, I think it works. So. And then, yeah, I didn't talk about the guitar.
Are you more of a Kelly or a Strat?
I have become a Telly guy. I've been a Strat guy for the last 7 to 10 years. And I bought a Telly and eventually sold my Strat. But, I love Fenders. I love the single coil tone. They actually aren't. I have a set of noiseless in my other Telly, and there's something more on the high end that I can't fix. That those just and the dynamics. I know I'm being super picky. I really they make some great sounding noiseless ones, but the dynamics and the high end on the non-noiseless have still convinced me to stay there. So I use noise gates, and it seems to work for me. If I get in trouble with that, then I'll have to have I'll get some noiseless as well. Yeah, it's an American original. Basically, they're trying to make it like the 64 television, but they gave it a 9.5 radius. Straightforward.
I thought about it.
I migrated the small one, and I was using the bigger ones.
There's a router you can get.
When I first did them, I didn't like them, and now the bigger ones. So.
Get patches like that.
I was wondering what were the first pedals you ever got?
Yeah.
So you can pull
Oh,
something
man.
out.
I had the worst rig, guys. I went out to the music store and didn't know anything about what I was doing, so I bought it was a purple DOD distortion pedal. I don't know what it was called. Awful. It was DOD, it was the company. Which I did you take my balls down? I don't remember. And I was using my dad's PV National 400, which is a pedal steel transistor amp. And the worst.
It's any good right now. I've been
His
It's absolutely worth it. With a hollow body guitar, the guitar was an ES335 in 1968.
This fellow
And
right
it
here.
was thousands of dollars going through a cheap $30 rig.
What's the one that we're talking about your emails?
I wish.
Yeah, I'm tempted to switch over.
Oh, man.
It was my grandfather's. It was my grandfather's. And then this thing does feedback. This thing simulates amp feedback. I can show it to you.
As far as like research
And I did
go,
because when you're in your monitors, you don't have
I
an
know a lot
amp
of
in
people
front of
bring
you.
stuff out, but you have
So,
so many presets.
I can get around that.
You can get impulse
And,
files, right? It's just a file.
It's Digitech freak out. And what I'll do is hold down the chord.
I'm sure there's it's just an audio file. You should hear impulse file.
And it does it with clean tones. Doesn't matter. Not that I wanted it with clean tones. So, yeah, and you can even adjust it so it has an Evo effect, but I don't want to mess with the settings right now, and I'd rather use a real Evo. Yeah, so with that, it's like now it really sounds like there's an amp in front of you. I could leave it on all the time, but it's kind of awkward to do that on every note, so you just see me stomping it back and forth. It's got a momentary switch. So, yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Do you have any suggestions on like a first pedal I ever
The first pedal, what you got an amp? Yeah, you said, were you the one that said you're playing with just an amp right now? Okay.
I've heard a lot about them too. I think that's
I mean, it depends on what your budget is for one thing.
Like myself within 100.
yeah.
Within $100? That I mentioned that Zoom one will be about $100, and one reason I mentioned that one is just because it's a kitchen sink. It's got chorus delay and reverb. So, or like that line 6 that you're using now, and you're using M9. The M5 might be around $100. But the point of a multi effects is that you can learn about every effect that's in there, and then you learn what you want. And then if you want to branch out and buy individual pedals, then you have a good idea. You know? So, so yeah, that Zoom one's called a Zoom MS-70 CDR. It's baby blue, and chorus delay and reverb.
You know, so you get stuff.
For CDR. For ambient effects, I think it's killer. It's a pain live. All the Zoom stuff is a pain live because you can't jump presets.
What's
You
your
gotta go
like? What's your
you have to
typical
program in order.
like?
It's a 4-minute
Yeah, like
Strymon.
so. What do you do
I
to
would,
prepare? Like, let's say you know
if you want
like,
Strymon on the
you got
cheap,
the songs. How do you
But
go about
more
getting ready for
MOER
presets
is
and all that
making
kind of
some.
stuff?
They have one called an Ocean Machine that is supposed to compete with Strymon, and it's not as expensive. But I don't know what
Not
it
like
costs.
that
Here's
anymore.
the set list on
Maybe
Monday.
it's $200, $300, which is not cheap.
I'm thrilled that I have like 5 days to do that.
So what is that date that you heard?
That Ocean Machine, it's reverb and delay and shimmer.
Schedules.
The shimmer is usually they
It's
add like a
possible,
pit,
trust me.
it's like a
It's
spot
fine.
thing
I mean,
to the
People can do.
sound,
Is he a full time? Is he
and
part time?
it's added to your ambience.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I don't want to speak
what's
into
that?
it. What-
Yeah, I don't know if I have I don't think I have a shimmer on that clean sound I was using, do I?
Oh, lots
But
of
this is
times
an
too,
example of a
faster.
shimmer.
Yeah.
Maybe on other leadership too.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah, this thing just got killer ambient effects on it, but yeah, you can see how much I'm using shimmers. I can't even find it. But the clean tone you heard me using during this session is what I usually use for worship.
That's pretty cool.
A lot of guys get obsessive about it, you know, but for me,
There's a swell.
1 or 2 usually works for me. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, well, I love doing. This is one of my main tones I use. I use that a lot. I mean, that's when the song's getting big, you know. So yeah, that's one reason I like the Telly is because the bridge will overdrive really well, almost like in my opinion, almost like a Les Paul. Yeah. It's in parallel, so that's also perception. I don't know if you know the difference between parallel and series. It's basically like there's a dry signal with no effect going on, and then you have your wet one here. And so you have to set your effects with a greater mix than if they were all series. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I couldn't tell you what the numbers are, but I think it's in parallel, so that's going to see just set the taste and set the gear. I try to be careful not to set really long tails because it kind of limits you, unless you know your patch is a song-specific one, like for slow music or something, like ballads. But a lot of guys will program patches per song. I try to stay away from that. A lot of these patches you're hearing me use, I use on 80-90% of worship music I can just use. What you guys heard. Maybe that means I'm not obsessive enough in some ways, but
No, yours is perfect.
well, cool. And I'm glad to hear that. I guess it sounds okay in front of that. When I'm standing back here, it's muffled. I use the trumpets a little bit. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you guys. Nice to meet you. Yeah, everybody loves beer. I know.